Hello, 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 hello. It's Kristen, and today we are going to be talking about Charmed Season 2, Episode 16, but we're doing things a little bit different today. We are going to be live. We're live streaming. So I'm going to wait a second and allow some people to join, but we are talking all things this brand new episode of Charmed, and I figured, we're in quarantine, we're trying new things. Last week I tried doing a reaction to the new episode of Charmed, and it was fun, but also I had a lot of issues tech-wise on the YouTube end. So today I thought it would be fun to try doing a live stream discussion of the new episode of Charmed, because I figured, we already talk about the show in the comments, so what if we were able to do it kind of in real time, So that is why we are live streaming today. I already got a comment right here from Apocalypse the Destroyer Reloaded. Hey, hello. Second Form Paul says hello, hello. So yeah, we're talking Charmed Season 2, Episode 16. Hey guys, thank you for joining. So, a couple of quick things before we get into this episode is I just want to thank everyone who supported the video series that I'm working on with MTV. I really appreciated everybody's support, and we're going to be doing new episodes every Saturday, so that's really cool. They are up on MTV's Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. It's called It Was All a Stream, and the whole deal is that we are trying to, give us some hope and give us some positivity and some fun things to listen to and watch while we're in the middle of this quarantine. The whole thing is like trying to find new movies and TV shows that maybe have bumped up their dates so that we can watch them while we're stuck at home, or that you can watch that would have normally been in theaters. So hey guys, thank you so much for joining. Another quick thing I just want to mention is that my Patreon account is still up and running, and I have some exclusives there that maybe you haven't seen on my channel. Things that aren't necessarily on my channel that are there if you want to check them out. There's even a special Charmed tier where I'm sharing script moments from like my notes on Charmed Season 1, so if you want to check that out. But yeah, so hey guys, thank you so much for joining, and we're gonna start talking about this episode of Charmed live. How exciting! So, as I normally say in my videos, consider subscribing if you like my videos, and drop down in the comments and let's talk about this episode of Charmed together. I have some notes here because that's actually what I do when I watch an episode of Charmed. I have a whole notes section that I just write down everything that I'm thinking, and so I thought we could kind of go through that, and if you guys have things you want to bring up, we can talk about them and just dive a little bit deeper into episodes that maybe we normally couldn't because we haven't been live before. Okay, so one of the first things that I want to talk about is, this was definitely a wild episode because we're following kind of these two different groups. We have our sisters together with Abigail, and then we're following a kind of unexpected duo of Harry and Jordan. So that was really interesting to see how they kind of separated everybody in this episode. And I will say one thing that kind of stood out to me is I've noticed that like the house is just not a place where like magical things happen. In the original show, the manor was kind of a very iconic location, and as we kind of started out with this episode, I started thinking about how like, oh yeah, like we're finally seeing them in the house a little bit, and I'm just like, wow, I wish that they were in there a little bit more. I wish that the attic was that hub for them like it was in the first season, like it was for the OG sisters, just because I kind of miss that. I guess in this season we kind of have, I guess, the safe space as that location and the little command center, but I really missed the house. I don't know if anyone else feels that way too. I see a comment from ZFam that says right, and Kevin Jones says Harry and Jordan was an interesting combo, although Harry just leaving Jordan behind was messed up though. Yeah, we will definitely get into that, but it was definitely, I think he was kind of stuck, because he's pretending to be someone else at that point. But yeah, he shouldn't have left him behind. So let's see, what else do I have here? Something else that I've noticed about this show that kind of just frustrates me a little bit is that and we see it in this episode too, is that they're kind of doing research on these monsters, and they have that computer up that has the list of all of the different monsters that were in that original monster, you know, like the different creatures that they had pulled from and put into that first monster. And I'm just like, we have never met any of these creatures. We've never met any of these magical creatures. So to me, it kind of loses its impact a little bit, because I'm like, well, what is a, you know, Kion, or whatever the different monsters are, like, what is that? You know, like, we've met one or two creatures this season from the magical world, and then they just kind of like name off other ones that I'm like, well, I don't know what that is. And so that kind of frustrates me a little bit, just because I feel like it takes a little bit away from the magical world. You know, we're building this magical world that we still don't really know much about it. Like, what are these beings? What are these magical creatures? What can they do? Why are these true believers even taking their abilities and putting them in humans? You know, I just wish that they did a little bit more there in, you know, how cool would it have been if we had gotten a couple Monster of the Week episodes where we had gotten to actually meet some of these creatures that then later on would become the, you know, the source of the magic for these new human-created monsters. That's what I think would have been really cool to see. We got another comment here. Kevin Jones says, I mean, the man-made monsters are different, but yeah, I missed the supernatural creatures from myth. Well, so the thing is, like, you know, we have these supernatural creatures that we've never met, that now these monsters have their powers. Like, why haven't we met them? And then we have a message from Devilish Aggie, who says, I honestly had to laugh about the fact that there is a demonic social media influencer. That was really funny. I actually really enjoyed that part of the episode. Let me see what other notes I have here. Let's see. Yeah, I really enjoyed that we'll just talk about that. I really enjoyed that the influencers are demons. Like, how funny is that? I think that was definitely like a play on being an influencer, and it kind of felt like we were in one of those like influencer houses, like the Hype House or you know, Team 10 or whatever. It felt like we were in one of those houses when we got to go in and see what you know, where the demons lived and stuff. I will say though, I wish that they had picked a demon that was like the leader, that the woman that they went to and were talking to. I wish they picked someone who I think just looked a little bit more influency. Like there was another girl that they had that was sort of sitting and doing like beauty makeup, and I was like, oh, that girl would have been like funny, you know, just to see someone a little bit more like vapid, or someone a little bit more, you know, like play up the stereotype a little bit more. I think the person that they had as the main, you know, demon leader, influencer, just seemed, you know, like a demon. Like she just seemed like she wasn't necessarily an influencer. I think they could have played it up a little bit more. Let's see. ZFam says, period, sis. Period. Apocalypse the Destroyer Reloaded says they could have at least shown what the monsters look like in a book. Exactly. Like, even if they had, like, you know, showed us it in a Book of Shadows or a Book of Elders, or, you know, maybe we got to meet a couple more of the creatures in the magical world, I think that would have been really cool. And then let's talk about the prophecy. Malachi is bringing up, remember the prophecy from the witch who cursed Jordan? Yes, I actually wrote down the prophecy so we could dissect it. So let's just jump into that and dissect that a little bit. So they said, many were lost, few can be found, those who remain can be unbound, for where sisters lurk, danger resounds, the trio of dark and light shall be found. So, you know, there's definitely a lot that we can kind of dive into there. The first line, many were lost, you know, so this was around the situation where, you know, Jordan and Harry were working together. They put like a Romeo and Juliet type potion together, and Harry gives that to Jordan so he can pretend he's dead, so they can infiltrate the true believers, like, business, whatever they're working on. And you know, while Jordan is under, he starts having kind of like a vision of that witch that originally put a curse on his family. And at first I was getting a little nervous. I'm like, oh shoot, is she gonna kill him? I thought we had time, you know. and she tells him about this prophecy. And I think that we can dive really deep into a lot of what they're talking about. So many were lost. I think that's pretty obviously about the witches of Salem, or like the witches of her time. Few can be found. Those who remain can be unbound. I wonder if that's diving into the idea of like maybe those witches' ancestors, or maybe there are witches from that Salem time that managed to hide themselves and hide their abilities, and they're somewhere out there, and maybe the Charmed Ones will get to meet them and help them. Maybe their powers are bound right now to try to keep them safe. For where sisters lurk, danger resounds. I mean, I think that could definitely be about, you know, where the sisters, the Charmed Ones, are hiding out, where they are, there's danger. So where are they? Usually at safe space. So that definitely could be hinting that maybe safe space is not so much a safe space, or that there is someone there that is a bit dangerous. Let me go back a little bit. I got some theories coming in. And then the last part is the trio of dark and light shall be found. The trio of dark and light, I mean, I think what a lot of people are saying in the comments here, and what could make sense, is that maybe there is, you know, a dark set of Charmed Ones. Or maybe it just means that there is 3 people who are evil that are, you know, part of the scenario. So, you know, I think dark Charmed Ones would be really cool, anti-Charmed Ones. It could be, you know, 3 sisters that, you know, have powers also, or it could be maybe actual, like, doppelganger versions of our Charmed Ones, which could be really interesting. And the idea of maybe just, like, there being 3 people that are close to the Charmed Ones that maybe are dangerous. I mean, that could easily be maybe the trio of, Vivian, Dark Harry, and maybe even Julian, because those are 3 people that are kind of connected in a way, although not that we've necessarily seen together on screen, but in ways where, you know, it's clear at the end of this episode that, you know, Dark Harry is not so innocent. Like, he was kind of involved in stuff that was going on. He was seeing the True Believer woman that we had met earlier in the season, and we know that she works for Vivian. Vivian, we know, is definitely in charge of what's going on with the True Believers, and Julian is her nephew. And while I personally don't think Julian necessarily, I guess, is a bad guy, I think that he could be involved, but maybe thinking that he's doing the right thing, because there was a moment in earlier in the season in one of his episodes where he was we got to see like what happened to him when he was young, how he lost his parents, and they kind of say some things that kind of hint at maybe it was something a little bit more supernatural or magical that made him lose his parents. And so I could see maybe he wants to take down magic because he's afraid of it because of what happened to his family, not knowing that there isn't just bad magic, that maybe there's good magic too. All right, so let's go into the comments over here and see what everyone's saying. Nas says, I'm late, so I'm not sure what was discussed. Bring up whatever you want. So far, we've kind of talked a little bit about the beginning of the episode. We've talked a little bit about the prophecy, and yeah, you know, we'll bring up things. We'll keep talking. CJ Fire says, it honestly feels like they're going into the triad storyline. Maybe that could be what the trio of dark and light shall be found is referencing. That would be interesting. Caleb says there is an anti-charm sisters. Maybe. Kevin is saying, I'm hoping we get to see an evil version of the power of 3. That would be great moral conflict for the girls. I think that'd be really interesting. Do you think it would be, again, like, would it be doppelgangers of them, or do you think it would be, you know, just 3 girls that kind of represent the opposite of them? Nas says, I think maybe the descendants that Abigail told Jordan about are going to end up being an evil version of the Charmed Ones. That could be interesting and connect back to the prophecy and, you know, what Jordan is working on, which would make sense. Let's see what else. Caleb says, I agree, it's referring to an evil power of 3. Apocalypse the Destroyer Reloaded says, yes, we need an evil version of the Charmed Ones. Malachi says, there might be a dark power of 3, one that can gain power from the green goo. That would actually be really interesting to see if, like, the Charmed Ones get their power from the black amber, and maybe there's an evil version of them that gets their power, like you said, from the green goo that they have. Let me go back a little bit. I lost where I was with the comments. Javar says that would be dope to have a dark charmed ones. CJ Fire says, or maybe how whitelighters have a yin and yang balance. Maybe that's the same for the charmed ones. That would be interesting as well. Maybe the elders put that together. Nas says, now Abigail has, well, we'll get to that actually in a second. Let me see. Apocalypse the Destroyer Reloaded says maybe 3 evil witches will get a hold of Macy's amulet that contains the source. You see, here's the thing. I think that would be very interesting, but they haven't mentioned the source not one time in this season. So if it does happen, I feel like, what is the writing that's going on then? Because they, like, it's one thing to like hint at things and then you look back later and you're like, oh my god, I can't believe that happened. But if they don't mention it at all, then it just feels like, how can they go there and have the story make sense, you know? Apocalypse the Destroyer Reloaded says, I would like to see some male witches at some point. And Miles Dominique says, male male counterparts would be an interesting take, honestly. So yeah, I think it would be really interesting if maybe instead of 3 sisters, they had 3 brothers that were the dark ones. That would be really, really cool. All right, let's see. What else shall we talk about? Let's get into some of the discussion here about Abigail. Let's talk about Abigail a little bit. So Nas says, Abigail now has 3 sets of demonic powers, so I wonder if she'll be one of the dark charmed ones, or if she'll create them so that she can have her own power of 3 on her side. That's really cool. I don't know if they would do that, because I don't know if they're going that deep, but that would be awesome. I think we should definitely talk about, though, that Abigail has 3 different sets of demonic powers now. She has her witch powers, she has her own demon powers, she has Macy's demon powers, and now she has helped Parker become a human and now has his demon powers. Could Abigail be the trio of darkness? Because maybe just her as a person now has 3 different sets of demonic abilities within her. 3 in 1. Yeah, Sean Alexander, 3 in 1. That would definitely be something that's kind of unexpected, but also could make a lot of sense. Let's go back a little bit. There was an episode of the OG Charmed where the sisters were threatened by another trio of witches who stole their identity and magic. That was from Devilish Aggie. Yeah, that could definitely be something maybe that they're trying to reference to. All right, let's see. Rose Emerald Lee says, what do you think about the interaction and conversation between Maggie and Parker? So, as we saw this episode, Maggie and Parker finally kind of came face to face again, and Parker now has no magic. So you would think, does this work? Can they be together now finally? To me, I'm kind of glad that Maggie is letting Parker go. I think that he kind of represents a lot of things from the past that, you know, Maggie's a lot stronger and powerful now, and I don't think she necessarily needs to go back to that. Although I wonder, like, will we see Parker come back again in the future? Maybe he'll kind of help or guide in some way, or maybe he'll, you know, if they need like an ally, you know, later down the road, you know, he could definitely come back. Obviously, he already knows about magic, even though he doesn't have powers anymore. So I'm kind of glad that Parker and Maggie are officially over, but I wonder what that will mean for his relationship with Abigail, and if we'll see him come back at any point later on. Rose Emerald Lee also says, can we talk about the fact that Jimmy had a relationship with one of the evil humans? Yes, that was very surprising. Because first of all, gotta say, thought it was very weird that Harry put on this whole uniform, snuck into this building with Jordan, and then the minute he's out of out of the way, going to look around, he decides to take the uniform off. Like, wouldn't that mean you'd be immediately caught? But anyway, so he ends up coming across that evil human, and she thinks that he's Jimmy, aka Dark Harry, and he goes with it to try to learn more. I was very surprised about that because, you know, Dark Harry, we see him now, he's trapped in his bottle again, and it just seemed like they were using him. It seemed like, you know, they were trying to, I guess, it seemed like he wasn't on their side, but now that we've found out that he was, like, in a relationship sort of with one of the people on the bad side, it's kind of like, is he tricking us now? Like, is there a reason that, like, actually helps that side for him to be in his bottle in the command center? You know, like, what does that mean? Maybe people turned on him, maybe he kind of changed his mind and didn't like where things were going, but I think they didn't really explain that yet, and that's something that they kind of left us on that cliffhanger with he's in the car driving off with her, and Jordan's left outside like, what am I doing now? That I thought was a cool ending because it felt like a cliffhanger that's going to continue on into the next episode. You know, it didn't feel like, oh, we're done with this episode. It felt like, oh, there's something more coming, like kind of like a two-part episode in a way instead of just like a regular episode. Let's go back a little bit more. We got a whole bunch of comments. If I don't see them, just because it's hard to go all the way back when we're in the middle of talking about one thing, feel free to comment them again, and I will try to get to everything that we want to talk about. Okay. So Caleb says, is Abigail a wild card, like a red herring? Ooh. And wait, I lost it. Where were we? Anyway, in terms of her being a red herring, I think that that could honestly be true because I feel like there's so many instances where everyone's like, oh, well, Abigail's evil, she's evil, but really, everything that she's done, even if she's done stuff that has really helped herself, it also helps everyone else too. You know, like she has never like really betrayed the Charmed Ones. She's always helped them, and just because it helps herself too doesn't mean, you know, that makes her evil, I think, you know? So I think that Abigail is a character that's very, you know, like, wishy-washy. I think she's a character that, like, does things for herself, for her own selfish needs, but also kind of does the right thing. Like, she's never done the wrong thing and, like, hurt other people, other than the very beginning of the season when she was hurting witches purposely, but other than that, she's kind of always been there for the Charmed Ones. And so, you know, I think she's manipulative, I think she's sneaky, I think she's out for herself, but she still is kind of on the good side. Like, she hasn't betrayed the Charmed Ones. So Naz says, okay, let me go back a little bit more to some Parker stuff. Kuzi says, I thought Parker's magic was stripped on the wedding episode. That is what they wanted us to think, but it turned out Abigail tricked everyone and really just, well, you know, okay, so what happened was she didn't really get rid of his powers. She faked it so that she could make it look like, he, like, was killed, but then she, like, took him away and, like, hid him in her, what's it called? That little secret prison that she has. And then when the situation came out with, wait, what is happening? Like, I'm confused now about what happened with the wedding versus what happened with Jordan. No, she was supposed to strip, they were supposed to strip Maggie of the powers on the wedding day. That didn't happen. Jordan gets attacked by Parker, and then she makes it look, then Abigail makes it look like she killed Abigail makes it look like she killed Parker, but really she hid him in her prison, so she never actually really took his powers. Now she's taken his powers. As College Girl 1900 says, this season has been a mess in my opinion. Just to explain that was so confusing. I think it has been a bit of a mess. That was so confusing to even just say that when it's like, what? Let me go back a bit more. So, Nas says, one thing I don't understand is that they said Macy has her demon side, just not her demon powers. So, shouldn't Parker still be half demon? I don't think he really solved much with that one, with the knife. Here's the thing. I think that Macy technically, I guess Macy technically isn't really a demon. She's a witch and a human who then had a necromancer put a spell together that put demon blood in her, that gave her demon powers, but I don't know if technically that even makes her a demon. They resurrected her by putting someone's blood in her, but that just, she wasn't born a demon. Whereas Parker is born half demon and half human. So I feel like technically Parker would still be a demon just without powers. And Harold says, well, she would genetically, the blood would genetically make her a demon. But would it? Because if I got a blood transfusion right now, that doesn't make me the other, like the person that I got the blood from, That's kind of what the situation was for Macy. She essentially got like a demonic blood transfusion. So does that really make you a demon, or does that make you just like a witch with demon blood in you and demon powers? Like I said, if I got a blood transplant right now, a blood transfusion, that doesn't make me the other person that I got that blood from, So I don't think that technically, I don't think that Macy is a demon. I think she was a witch with demon abilities and demon blood in her. And I think Parker technically is still half demon. So let's go back. So Harold says, so wouldn't that mean they already solved how to transfer magical abilities? That's a great point, because clearly they were able to transfer magical abilities by giving Macy this demon blood and giving her that demon power. But I think the whole thing is that that's supposed to be like, you're not supposed to do that. Like, that's a very, I don't know, isn't like magically illegal. Like, they're not supposed to. So I think that's probably why they don't. Although that makes a lot of sense that they could definitely do that and be making half demon, half whitelighter, half witch, whatever, just by inserting blood. And as we saw, I don't know if you guys remember in the OG episode, that doctor episode where he inserted the Charmed One's blood into monkeys and also into himself, it's kind of like that in a way. All right, let me go back. College Girl 1900 says, in this episode, Abigail is the one who saves Mel rather than her sisters. That just says everything. I mean, I think that definitely shows that Abigail, was sneaky. We got to see her be really sneaky in that way, but also she still helped Mel, J-Man says, you guys, I heard there's an upcoming episode where we see Macy's past. Do you guys think that we'll learn what type of demon blood she has? I hope so. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think we could definitely figure that out by the type of power she had, which was fire. So I believe there's a certain faction of demons that have those abilities, but maybe we would get to learn a little bit more about, like, where did that come from. I hope, though, actually, that in an episode where we get to learn more about Macy's past, that we actually get to see her dad and see a little bit more of, like, what it was like for her growing up. Because that's something that I wish that they would do more in this, like, show more of, like, that kind of, like, family history and get into the magical history that way. Okay. Kevin Jones, having Macy be an actual half demon would have been more fun to play with. It would have been. But I think, like, I don't know, like, scientifically, I guess that doesn't really make sense, right? Let me know what you guys think. Let me know. Do you think Macy is actually half demon, or just has had demon blood in her and now kind of has lost that power? Let's see what else. Deekster says, can we talk about how Godric is randomly super powerful and tries to become the new overlord? Like, that came out of nowhere. That's actually one of the things that I felt kind of did have a little bit of a basis in coming from somewhere, because I think we've seen Godric be that person that's kind of always there, always that right-hand man, but also kind of doing sneaky things on the side. Like, he's the one that started that, that, like, raid on those trees. You know, like, he did all this stuff, like, secretly. So I feel like we've kind of saw this coming, that Godric is trying to do something else. Now, I was surprised, I guess, that he wanted to be the new overlord. I thought maybe he was working for someone else, because, you know, we see him talking to the person that's supposed to be like the master, or, you know, the Darklighter's master, or supposedly possibly the real overlord. But maybe this whole time he's had all these visions of, you know, becoming the leader himself. So I kind of could see that coming. Okay. Let's see. Rose Emerald Lee says, what do you think about the Macy problem with Julian and Harry? Julian gave her a necklace, and when her sisters asked her why she's not wearing it, she comes up with a dumb excuse. Yeah, I think Macy doesn't know what she wants. I think she likes the idea of Julian, that he's into science, that he's handsome, that he's very, like, suave and stuff, but I think she also clearly likes Harry, so it's kind of like this weird situation where it's like, just don't date anybody then. Like, just, you know, but, you know, as Kevin Jones said, the CW loves drama and angst. And the thing is, I think that they do it kind of poorly in this episode, in this season, like in the show. I've watched so many CW shows lately while I have nothing to do. I've been really into Katie Keene, I've been really into Nancy Drew, and they don't do, like, the terrible romances like they do in this show. Like, I don't know what's going on there. Like, they don't. Like, I think that they do, especially in Nancy Drew, for instance. We had this relationship with Nancy and Ned, and, you know, it didn't work out. And then slowly over the course of the season, we sort of start to see him having an interest in George. And it's like, you know, there you go. You know, the way that they did it was so, just, like, not shoving it down your throat, you know? And I think in Charmed, for some reason, they just, like, want to shove all the romances down your throat. Like, focus on the magic. That's what we care about, the magic and the sisterhood. And Kevin Jones says, yes, I agree. Awesome. Yeah, I'm glad I'm not alone in that. And Naz says, Godric staging a coup made sense. What doesn't make sense was him freeing Parker since he took down Abigail by himself. Anyways, it reminded me how stupid it was for Abigail to keep Parker alive. Yeah, again, you know, a lot of things just, like, don't really make a lot of sense. Like, why, you know, if you're the one that gave up Parker to Abigail, why work with him now? But I think the whole thing was that, like, you know, none of these overlords were doing what Godric wanted. You know, Godric wanted things to be done a certain way, and when they weren't being done that way with Parker, he went to Abigail. And now Abigail is also not doing what he wants, so he's like, you know what? This guy's trapped. Maybe he'll help me if I let him out, you know? So I think that was kind of his way of just being like, nothing's working out my way. Who do I have around me that could maybe help in some way? Because, you know, what is the episode called? The enemy of my enemy is my frenemy. So we not only saw that with the Charmed Ones and Abigail, but we saw that with Parker and Godric. Let me see. I have a whole bunch of notes about this episode. Let's see. And a bunch of questions that I think we could bring up. Actually, I guess we kind of talked about a lot of them. I'll put my notes away, and we'll just keep going with the questions and discussing that way. So, let's dive into the new power, right? Like, I feel like that's something we have to talk about. The new power that we see with Macy. It was a little bit confusing, I feel like, because the way that they shot it at first didn't look like anything like super exciting was happening. And I was like, wait, is this a new power? Is this nothing? I don't know. And then it kind of looks like she sort of freezes people, which is similar to what Macy's ability, what Mel's ability used to be. There's so many M names. But in a way that sort of looks like they're aware that they're frozen, or like that they're trying to be like pushed back, sort of. And so I wonder if that is a new power. You know, they mentioned it, mobilization, or if that's like an extension of her telekinesis power, because, you know, telekinesis is the ability to move things. So if you have the ability to move things, you should also have the ability to like stop the thing that's moving, right? So my thought is maybe that is a version, like an extended version of her power. And it kind of looked like the way that we saw it in this episode, how it kind of like things kind of were like moving slightly, also sort of looked, I thought, a little bit similar to how when she first got her powers back and all those leaves were kind of like swirling. So I wonder if, you know, this is an extension of her abilities and maybe not necessarily a completely new power. Because, and what's interesting is also that they weren't really frozen. It was more like she was trying to hold them in place, so they like were probably still aware and still trying to like move. So I don't know if I didn't like hate the power, but also I think that the powers and also just a lot of things in this season, there are things that go on that I'm kind of like, I want to understand more, and I don't know if we like necessarily get that. All right, let me go back a little bit because I noticed that we got a super chat. Woo! Thank you, Marie. She sent a keep it up emoji. Thank you. I really appreciate that. That's awesome. Thank you so much. Okay. But yeah, so I think that this is I think that's an extension of her ability, using, you know, being able to hold something in place using the telekinesis. Jazz says, I don't like how the new power looks visually. I kind of agree with that. It kind of looked like it was like a puke green, and they're just like shaking. Put like a puke green filter over it. And let's see. J-Man says, I feel as if the new power should have been given to Mel, and the color was just super weird to me, especially since the place was already dark. Yeah. I definitely agree that the color was weird. In terms of the you know, Mel getting the powers, I think the way that the powers have been kind of dispersed this season have been sort of weird, because, you know, we got rid of the powers that they originally had, now we kind of brought it back, and it's like, what's the reasoning? Why does Mel and Maggie have a new power and Macy have the same power that she originally had, but maybe like a more advanced version? And to me, the only thing I can think of is like, do they just want them to have the same powers as the OG sisters? I don't know if they're, like, logically, like, it just doesn't always make sense, some of the things that happen. So, like, to me, I'm like, I don't get logically, like, why they would get different powers and Macy wouldn't, unless they just want them to have the same ones as the original sisters. And, you know, in terms of, like, what other powers will they get next? Like, what do you guys think? Where do we see, like, will the sisters eventually get the powers they had from the first season back? Will we get completely new ones? Will we just be focused on the ones they have now and maybe just expanding them? I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts. MB says, yeah, what happened to the original powers? That's a great question. I don't really know. Nas says, the new showrunners just rebooted the season. Remember how Macy's evil sight just disappeared and was never mentioned? Well, that is true, but also I think with the evil sight, that was like a more advanced power that she needed that stick. Oh my gosh, I don't remember what it was called, like that wand for, and because they broke that wand purposefully so that she wouldn't be able to access that anymore, I believe that's why they probably haven't brought it up again, because again, that was like a more advanced power that she needed help with anyway, and they broke the tool that she needed help with so that she'd stop doing the evil sight thing. Speaking of the powers, the needle, yes, Kevin Jones, the needle, like the stick. Speaking of powers also, something that I noticed is just like this episode, right? We come across this bee demon dude and they immediately just use the power of 3 and vanquish him. I mean, we haven't really seen that, so I guess maybe is that what we've been waiting for? But also, it felt like that guy hadn't really done anything yet. Like, yeah, he's chasing a witch, but like, he didn't actually like attack anyone. He was just standing there talking, and then they just used the power of 3 on him. And it felt like, wow, why is this so easy that like, oh, we came across some guy that we don't like, let's power of 3 him, all right, he's done. Like, it was just so quick. So I didn't actually really like that moment. I felt like it was just too easy for them. VB Halliwell says they were being surrounded. I mean, I get that they were, but I get that they were surrounded by like all of those bee demons, but like nobody was actually coming up to them. And then they stopped that so that like he was all by himself, and they still just like killed him. And like there was no, like, he didn't come forward. He was just talking, really. And they just kind of vanquished him. I thought it was a little too premature. Nas says that power of 3 spell is already too easy. They should need to find a spell or potion to fight the specific demon like the OG, even if this is something new. Yeah, like, you know, it shouldn't just be like, oh, there's someone that's like really difficult to destroy. Let's just use Potentia Trium. Done. All right. Was that the spell? You know, it was just so easy. Like, if magic is that easy, then like, where's the fun in it, you know? You want to see them like work a little bit. Josh says there's no action in this series. Yeah, I kind of agree with that. You know, the moments where there could be action, instead they use, you know, a power 3 spell or something really quick. Like, the action happens very quickly. Like, there's not really a lot that's going on. Harold Wells says they are superheroes with no action. Jed Young says, do you think that Harry confirmed that warlocks exist in this series? What specific moment are you mentioning? I Love Che, too, says, what do you think Mel's powers will advance to? I mean, right now she's doing, like, fire and ice stuff. Maybe fire and ice stuff. What could that turn into? I mean, it would be interesting if maybe, she, you know, what is fire and ice, water, right? Like, ice and fire result in water, so maybe if she had some kind of like water-based power could be interesting. Or if we were to go back to the time stuff, let me see. Since Mel has, oh wait, sorry. Deekster says, since Mel has molecular powers now, I'm waiting for her to blow something up like how Piper would. Yeah, so, you know, I'm not exactly sure you know, what kind of powers we could get into time-wise. You know, stopping time is kind of out of the picture right now. So molecular stuff, you know, maybe there's something that she could do with molecules, turning herself into water, like Alex Mack or something. That could be interesting. Jed Young says, the conversation between him and Jordan when Jordan asked if he was a male witch or warlock. Yeah, maybe that was just like a joke. I don't know, because Jordan doesn't really know much about the magical world, so maybe he's just making stuff up, or maybe there are warlocks. Maybe we'll be introduced to some next season or something. Harold Wells says, to phase through objects would be cool. Yeah, like, that would be interesting if maybe because she has that whole molecule thing going on. Being able to phase through stuff would be really interesting. Alright, so guys, I'm going to start wrapping up soon. So are there any other burning questions or things you want to talk about related to this episode of Charmed? As you start thinking, I'm going to kind of share my overall thoughts. Overall, I think that there were a lot of things that were really fun, that were really great in this episode, and also a lot of things that I was just like, what is the script? What is this? What is happening here? This doesn't make any sense. I like that they ended on like this cliffhanger that sets up where we're going into episode 2, into the next episode of season 2. I like that we got to see sort of either a new power or an expansion of a power, although, you know, it was done a little bit, you know, some weird coloring, but I thought that was cool. It was great to see Godric finally come out and like be like, yo, I want to be the Overlord, because I feel like that's something that we have been waiting for since the beginning. Like, that has, it seemed like he's been going in that direction throughout this season. All right, let's see. We got some comments. J-Man says it would be cool to see Mel create mini tornadoes with the molecular stuff. College Girl 1900 says, I think Mel's power should advance to weather control. That would be cool. Nas says, Madeleine said she will be singing in episode 18, which is directed by Rupert, so that is something to look forward to. She has an amazing voice. I would love to see them do a musical episode. That would be so cool. Kevin Jones says, I like the show, but the writing could use some serious improvement. I do agree with that. Malachi says, where is the faction getting green goo? That's another great question, because we've only seen the green goo, you know, with the faction and also with the charmed ones in that whole area that has, like, the tree. So how are they getting access to that if the tree is kind of where it originates from? Rose Emerald Lee says, when episode 19 comes out, I'm going to be sad because it'll be the last episode for a while. FYI, you are doing an awesome job through these circumstances. Thank you, thank you. Let me know what you guys think of this type of video, like doing more of a, you know, discussion so we can talk about it. I think, you know, this was kind of like a little bit more of a spur of the moment thing, so I think what I would want to do in the future is maybe have a couple of bullet points and then we can kind of talk and discuss that way. Or do you prefer me to just like, we'll start and you guys just shoot off questions and we'll go off that way about this episode of Charmed and like what we think about it. So let me know how you would prefer it, and we'll kind of go from there. Although, you know, I guess, you know, we won't have the visuals like we sometimes do in my videos, but, you know, this could be, you know, a fun, more casual way to talk about it when, like, we're in such a stressful time right now in the world. Like, maybe this is, let me know what you think. Is this a fun, relaxing way to talk about Charmed, or does it feel a little bit messy? Let me know, because I definitely want it to be more streamlined in the future if we do more of these. Ja says, it feels like watching Magical Politics. I was intrigued but overall bored. Oh, man. VB Halliwell says, never found out for sure if Jordan's girlfriend is gone. That's a basic writing thing that would clarify she's gone before he starts something with Maggie. Yeah, they kind of just like, they sort of were like, yeah, he's seeing someone, and then they just ditched her. Didn't say anything about it. I hate stuff like that, because one of my pet peeves in, like, movies or TV shows is like when a guy is dating someone and then like immediately goes to someone else without, like, you know, just like not caring, you know, or like he can't be with that person and so then instead he goes back to like the person that he doesn't want to be with anymore. Those are one of my pet peeves, yo. Gerard says, there was a lot going on in this episode, but again, in true season 2 fashion, nothing really happened. I mean, yeah, kind of honestly, like, we got a little bit of powers, but otherwise, you know, not too much went on. Harold Wells says, I love it. Lady Naomi says, I love it. College Girl 1900 says, I so love this, keep it going. Oh, you guys love this, the live stream. Okay, great. Well, Harold Wells, this is the first time I have participated in one. This is my first Charmed live stream. I've done a couple of quarantine streams just to, you know, have some fun while we're at home, but, you know, if this works, maybe we can try this, you know, again, now that we've kind of worked out the kinks of, like, being able to talk about an episode, and maybe I could do them on Saturdays, you know, right after, you know, the episodes air, so that, you know, we can do it a little bit closer, we can have more of a deeper discussion, and, you know, I just want to, like, format it a little bit better so that we're not just kind of talking all over the place. Like, we can go through from the very beginning of the episode certain topics. So, well, you know, if you guys like this, we can definitely try that for the next one, and maybe we could do it on Saturday instead of Mondays. Apocalypse the Destroyer Reloaded says, I prefer this version you're doing. Cool, cool. I'm glad. I'm glad you guys are enjoying this. Kuzi Can says, who was Godric talking to at the Demon Club when they saw the charm was on the surveillance cameras? Exactly, who was that? I think that was the Overlord slash the Master, basically the Master who let the Darklighter out because they wore the same glove in those scenes, and I think that must have been Vivian, right? I think Godric's working with Vivian. Mark my words, okay? Marquino says, I love the live too. Thank you guys. Harold says, I have a question. What is your question? OG Charm Season 2 versus Remake Charm Season 2, which is stronger? That's hard because Dan is in Charm Season 2 in the OG, and I hated Dan. I hated Dan so much. Ryan says, this is more fun indeed. Keep it coming. I'm glad you guys think it's fun. I just want to make sure that, like, as fun as we're having, that we're also, like, really diving into stuff that we feel is important. So, okay. Cool. Lady Naomi says, this episode has been a great improvement for the rest of them, though. I think this one was okay. I thought the last episode was a lot better. So yeah, we'll see what happens with the rest of the season that we have left. And Jed says, isn't Vivian trying to destroy magic though? Okay, but just because she's trying to destroy magic doesn't mean that she also is not using the enemy of my enemy is my frenemy kind of tactics, you know? So like maybe if she's trying to get rid of magic, maybe having someone with magic on her side, like the Darklighter, like Godric, can help her, and, you know, maybe she'll allow Godric to kind of oversee the demons while she oversees all of them, kind of thing, you know, like maybe she'll be the ultimate, you know, one in control and be able to use the demons to her advantage. I don't know. Maybe this is just saying random things that don't make any sense, but, you know, the fact that Godric, okay, here's the thing. The fact that Godric talked to someone with a glove on, that then we saw that same glove with the Darklighter, and that was clearly the Darklighter's master, and to find out that the Darklighter now was being used by the True Believers, who are being led by Vivian. We gotta get one of those boards connecting all the lines, you know? That's why I'm like, okay, something's going on there. Maybe they're all working together. Malachi says, I hated Dan too. I hated Dan from season 2 of the OG Charmed. I hated him. And also Jed asks, will I do season 3 of the OG Charm sometime? Very possible, very possible. I mean, I'm going to eventually. It's just, you know, I just got to get into rewatching again. Because I've been kind of, I'm sure everyone, you know, is kind of in like a weird place with the quarantine and stuff that's going on. It's just kind of like, there's certain things that I'm doing more of, like cooking and watching CW shows, and yeah, I will definitely get back to it. Junta says, who was Dan again? Dan was the guy that Piper dated while she was trying to decide between, like, Leo and him, you know. Duran says, Kristen, I believe that Julian is secretly a bad guy. I hope he's not. I hope that what's happening is that he's doing it because he doesn't know any better, and that maybe the Charmers will be able to get him on their side eventually. Ryan says, what if Aunt Vivian is the Overlord? That's what I'm saying. I don't know. She's definitely the Master, I think. I think she's definitely the Master. So maybe she's the Overlord too. Gerard says, this live stream is great. Thank you so much. Harold says, Dan was great, but not main character worthy. Yeah, I mean, like, Dan was probably fine, but, like, I didn't like him for Piper. I wanted her to be with Leo, so I was like, get out of here, Dan. Neighbor Dan. All right, so thank you guys so much. This was so fun. I'm really gonna take all the feedback you guys are giving me about this live stream, and, you know, I'm hoping that we can do another one on Saturday to do, you know, to go along with the next episode of Charmed, and maybe we can just format it a little bit better so it's more, you know, easier to get through. We're talking through things succinctly and, like, chronologically. So, a couple things I want to mention really quick before I go is, one, if you haven't checked it out yet, I'm actually working on a digital series for MTV called, it's called It Was All a Stream, and the whole premise of the video, it's very positive, and it's to give you guys ideas of what to stream in the middle of this quarantine, what is available in music, what is available on movies and TV, because some shows are, you know, bumping up their premiere dates so that people have things to watch. Some movies, they're like, forget pushing it back and going to theaters later on, let's just put it on VOD now. Let's put it out now. So this video series is all about that. What can you watch now? What artist is bumping up their music so you can listen to it now? So I hope you guys will check it out. I really appreciated all the support for the first episode. It's on MTV's Facebook, IGTV, and Twitter, and there'll be new ones each week on Saturdays. I'm really, really excited about it. And also, like I said before, I have a Patreon account called patreon.com/kmaldo, where I have a lot of exclusives there, including a special Charmed tier, where you can get access to my notes from the first season of Charmed, just things that I haven't posted anywhere else, so make sure to check that out. And let me think if there's anything else I want to say. Thank you guys so much for watching, and if you like this video, you can check out more of my Charmed ones, which will be over here when this video is up. I will insert the graphics. But yeah, thank you guys again. This was really fun, and I see all the light changing right now. Let's open the window a little bit. It's getting dark in here. Okay, so cool guys. I will talk to you guys soon. All right, see ya.